Hey game industry, do you want to do me a favor and maybe not do something incredibly stupid for a whole week so that maybe I can stay in a good mood for once? Thanks. Hey Internet, remember all that happy, uplifting feeling from last week's episode? Yeah, it's gone now. If you've been following me for any extended period of time, you're probably not shocked to hear that this is somehow Nintendo's fault. It's kind of surprising, actually, that this didn't get picked up on immediately, considering there was enough to pile on Paper Mario Color Splash already, but no, it took a week. Anyway, if you didn't already hear, Nintendo's Treehouse team slipped in a pretty interesting joke into Paper Mario that you can see here.
Let's watch the 5 fun guys dance and shuffle. Man, is this going to ruin my career? I can see the headline now. Shufflegate exposed.
Now, as it turns out, these screens actually came from Ninty's E3 presentation stream, but most people didn't think much of it or even notice until game developer Zoe Quinn tweeted about the joke. Now, what Quinn saw was a joke made at her own expense regarding her ongoing harassment at the hands of the Gamergate movement back in 2014. Oh, what's that? You don't know what I'm talking about? Man, do I envy the life you lead. But to understand the scope of what's actually going on here, you're gonna have to have your innocence ruined a bit. So, here we go. The Gamergate movement, getting its name from a Twitter hashtag whose origins are commonly attributed to Firefly actor Adam Baldwin, was birthed when brewing disdain for creators and commentators criticizing video games from a more socially conscious point of view, a general distrust of the gaming press, and lingering paranoia from the censorship wars of the 90s and early 2000s, collided with a series of blog posts by a jilted ex of Zoe Quinn that, among other things, accused her of having affairs with 5 different people during their relationship, chiefly one with a Kotaku journalist and reviewer in exchange for a favorable review of her game Depression Quest. As it turns out, Kotaku never reviewed that game, but the powder keg was already lit. Under the guise of a consumer revolt, people began to aggressively harass Quinn, including credible rape and death threats. She eventually had to flee her own home after having hers and her family's addresses doxed online. Things didn't end there. The aggressors began to attack many in the industry, most of them being women, while organizing in threads on 4chan and Reddit. All of this drew the attention of right-wing media outlets, primarily Breitbart, which began to run articles galvanizing the campaign. Now, while many contended that there were legitimate concerns with this revolt, primarily the concerns about the friendliness of journalists and game makers, and the relevance of media and social discourse, most of these tenets fell by the wayside as the focus of the movement quickly changed into an offensive to silence and remove anyone who challenged gaming's status quos and are often referred to as SJWs. Now, most of the major full-time attention of the media is off this situation, but these events continue to unfold just underneath the surface of gaming culture. History lesson over. Now, hopefully you have some sort of understanding as to why someone might find these lines in Paper Mario less than favorable. And now we can finally talk about them! Now, when Quinn tweeted about the situation, many, myself included, saw what she clearly saw. Many others, however, saw something else. To them, they saw a reference to the Watergate conspiracy involving former President Richard Nixon, who... You know what? We don't have time for another history lesson. Google it. Now, Nintendo doubled down on this explanation itself, claiming that this was indeed a misconstrued situation. And for what it's worth, Quinn decided to accept this and pull the original tweet. That's fair, especially since it highlights how stupid it is to put "gate" at the end of a controversy like it means something. So then, that's it, right? Not really. First off, I have a hard time swallowing the Watergate pill. As I'm sure you noticed when you just Googled it, the men implicated in the Watergate scandal are commonly referred to as the Watergate 7, not 5. Secondly, this is a bit of an interesting joke to make, isn't it? I mean, sure, Nintendo trades and relies on nostalgia these days, but their primary market is still families and children. A 40-year-old political upset seems like a pretty odd place to go for a reference, especially for a team known for just sticking memes randomly in places. And yes, I know, kids are smart, and very well may know what Watergate was about. But this requires a bit of a detailed understanding to just get right off the top of your head. And that's before you consider how other media might do this. Consider Futurama, a TV show decidedly not for children, that also wrote a solvable math formula just to confirm a body-switching gag could be followed, and they actually have Richard Nixon in their recurring cast.
Nixon's back!
So how do they make a Watergate joke? They reference Richard Nixon himself, because Nixon quickly, and rightfully, became the face of the entire scandal. It's a lot easier and makes significantly more sense to build the joke this way. There's no way even a clever show like Futurama would try to make this kind of reference like we see here in Paper Mario. It just doesn't work. And keep in mind, too, the only reason these screenshots even came to Zoe in the first place? They showed up on a popular Gamergate subreddit called Kotaku in Action days before. So what is it? Is Nintendo full of crap? Or have they decided that their only viable market is 30-year-olds? But, in spite of all of this, the joke itself isn't really the problem. The real issue lies with Nintendo's own attitude about the situation, and what's missing from all of this. It's the same thing that's missing from the rest of the industry and the culture around it. And I'll tell you all about that next week. Yeah. Stinger. No, Nick Fury is not going to come out of the shadows.